Damn it. I saw with my own eyes that my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. 2 years ago, I met my boyfriend, and after a year of what I believed was a healthy relationship, I began to notice subtle changes in him. It all started when he began to act unusually protective of his belongings. Small incidents like questioning why I was using his phone to search for something seemed harmless at first, but gradually sparked a lingering suspicion within me. The turning point came during a recent trip to a carnival. My best friend, whom I've known for 4 years, had invited me, my boyfriend, and 5 other friends to celebrate her birthday with an outing that promised fun and spontaneity. We arrived at the carnival early in the morning, around 10 a.m., and for hours the atmosphere was filled with laughter, colorful rides, and the irresistible scent of carnival food. Everyone was having a great time, and I felt that familiar sense of belonging and excitement. After spending nearly 5 hours exploring the carnival, we began to wrap up our adventure. Our plan was to head to a restaurant for a meal together. At this point, my best friend excused herself to use the restroom, while the rest of our group decided to grab a quick snack or enjoy one last ride. My boyfriend and I stayed together for a moment, waiting in line for cotton candy. Then, out of the blue, he mentioned he was going to get some chips from another stall. Trusting him, I watched him walk away without any further thought. A few minutes later, I collected my cotton candy and then felt compelled to head toward the food stall he had mentioned. However, when I arrived, he was nowhere to be seen. Concerned, I began to search around the area, scanning the bustling crowd. That's when I passed by a series of photo booths. Each booth had a small screen displaying images of people inside, capturing moments of joy and laughter. Then, among those fleeting snapshots, I recognized 2 faces I knew too well. It took only a few seconds for the realization to sink in. My boyfriend and my best friend were inside one of those booths, locked in a passionate makeout session. In that instant, shock and betrayal washed over me. I stood frozen for a moment, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. Despite the overwhelming pain, I managed to record a video as evidence of their indiscretion, even as silent tears streamed down my face. I then rushed to the bathroom, allowing myself to cry in private for what felt like an eternity. The betrayal stung deeply, leaving me questioning every moment we had shared. I couldn't believe how naive I had been. After about 10 minutes, I gathered what little strength I had left and returned to the area near the food stalls. Barely had I re-entered the scene when my boyfriend reappeared. Clutching a bag of chips with a bright, almost rehearsed smile, he casually mentioned that the stall had a long line. In that moment, I forced a smile in return, concealing the storm of emotions raging inside me. Later, we joined the rest of our friends at the restaurant. Every bite of food felt like a painful reminder of the deceit, and I struggled to maintain the facade of normalcy. The hours dragged on as we sat there, while I grappled with the overwhelming sense of loss and betrayal. Finally, after 3 long hours, everyone left and went home, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Determined not to let them get away with their betrayal, I decided that gathering more evidence would be the next step. I needed a concrete way to confront my boyfriend and my best friend. The advice and support I received from various friends and online communities pushed me to take decisive action. The very next day, I shared the incriminating video with close friends, family members, and even the families of both my ex-boyfriend and ex-best friend. I explained everything, making it clear that the relationship was over due to the obvious betrayal. The support I received was overwhelming. Both families apologized to me, and many friends quickly sided with me by blocking my exes on social media. I also blocked their numbers and emails to prevent any further contact. The final twist was that my ex-boyfriend still resided in my apartment, as he was estranged from his own family. When he briefly returned to collect his belongings, it was a stark reminder that his actions had consequences. In the end, while the pain still lingers, I have found solace in knowing that I stood up for myself and took control of a situation that had deeply hurt me.
Wife's affair years ago, still haunting. This occurred 15 years ago. We had been married for 9 years at that point and had 2 sons. I worked a lot in healthcare, often putting in 12-hour days. I was tired and maybe a little cranky at times. I also had some mental health issues to contend with. Still, we were a pretty stable family, or so I thought. She worked at a store, and right across the street was where her affair partner, AP, worked. Naturally, they interacted quite a bit because of this, and I assume that's how they met. One morning, I got home from a 12-hour night shift to find the house empty. She was at work, and the kids were at school. I thought, nice. Peace and quiet after that shift. I sat down at my computer and moved the mouse to wake it. When the screen lit up, I saw an unsent email. I almost closed it, but something caught my eye. It was her account, and the email was addressed to a friend, discussing her boyfriend and how hot he was. I remember thinking, she is cheating on me. At work, a colleague had told me that my wife had been involved with her husband, who worked at the same store as my wife. I had completely dismissed that claim, so finding the email confirmed what I had initially ignored. There were clues in the email, and within a day I had figured out who he was, where he worked, and even his political affiliation. I left the email open on the screen, anticipating her return around noon for her lunch break. I waited, completely stunned. I had always trusted her implicitly. My mind raced, and graphic thoughts of the situation played over and over in my head. I sat in another chair in the den, forcing myself to stay calm. When she came home, she greeted me with a kiss and then sat down at the computer. Upon seeing the email, she froze, asked, "Why is my—" and then jerked her head toward me. I smiled and nodded yes. The rest of the conversation is a blur. I was in a manic state due to my bipolar disorder, which can be triggered by significant stress. I do recall her saying, "I knew this would hurt you if you found out." Really? Thanks for the consideration. I don't remember her apologizing, though she might have. My emotional state at that moment was overwhelming. I do remember telling her that it was forgivable if we worked on things, and at that time she seemed open to that. However, her attitude changed. She became distant, and though we remained friendly, things felt strange. Eventually, she proposed an open marriage, wanting to keep seeing him and maintain that relationship. I agreed not, because I wanted a girlfriend for myself, which never happened, but because I thought about our 2 kids. If she cheated and I divorced her, she could move out with him, taking them away from me. Plus, I'd end up paying child support. To me, if she cheated and took my kids, why should I reward her with a monthly payment? So, we remained together for several more years, and once the kids were out of school, we split. I let her continue her affair, even though it was incredibly disrespectful. But I made sure to kiss my kids goodnight every night, and that was what mattered to me. Internally, though, it was destroying me. I couldn't stop ruminating. I resorted to spying on her. She had a habit of writing notes to him, and I would wait until she was asleep to read them in her purse, even though they always hurt to read. This is how I learned she was doing things with him that she had never mentioned to me. I knew it was wrong to invade her privacy, but I was desperate, and cheating is wrong too. Her affair continued, and I believe she noticed how much it affected me. I don't know when or if it ended. She just stopped mentioning her AP. After the affair, I was pretty broken for a while. We became more like roommates than a couple, and were never intimate again, sadly. I eventually stopped caring and spying, and I tried to stop thinking about her affair. I assumed she may have continued seeing him or others. Honestly, I wasn't giving her anything, so I wouldn't be surprised. I carry a lot of baggage because of this event. Discovering the affair was the worst day of my life, but I've grown since then. I've learned about limerence and cheaters' motivations. I don't justify her actions, but I understand the complexities involved. That pain, though it really hurts.
My wife cheated on me with her gym partner. Now she's pregnant, and I have no idea if the baby is mine or his. I never thought my life would turn into something resembling a daytime soap opera. Once, I admired her for her sophistication and elegance. I used to see her as a woman of grace and class, someone who lit up every room she entered. But now, I hardly recognize the person I married. Over time, our shared dreams faded, and our home turned into a battleground of emotions and secrets. It all began when I received a shocking text one morning. The message confirmed my worst fears. She was moving in with her gym buddy. This wasn't just a friend. He was the man she had been having an affair with for a while. To make matters even more complicated, she announced that she was pregnant. I was left reeling, unable to determine whether the baby was his or mine. Instead of taking the sensible step of arranging a paternity test, she brushed off the idea, saying that the thought of having her blood drawn was too embarrassing. I couldn't understand how she could be so careless about such an important matter. For the past week, she had been reaching out to me nonstop. Her phone buzzed with message each one, a plea for me to come back and fix what was broken. She would drop hints and gentle suggestions, trying to lure me back into a life we once shared. But ever since I learned about her affair, I have kept my distance. Although we still live under the same roof, our lives have become two separate islands. I barely speak to her now, and when our paths cross, our conversations are short and filled with tension. Even with all this pain and betrayal, a part of me still cares for her. I remember the woman I loved, and it hurts to see her unravel into someone so unpredictable. I worry about her, even though I know that she has chosen a path filled with mistakes. My lawyer is already informed, and is preparing for what I know will be a messy legal battle. The thought of dividing our lives, our home, and possibly even a child is overwhelming. I told her plainly that moving out wasn't a wise decision, especially when things were already so unstable. I suggested she get legal advice before making any rash moves, but my words seemed to fall on deaf ears. It was as if she had already decided on her own path and was not willing to listen to reason. I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for her, wondering why she couldn't see that she might be better off alone, rather than tied to someone who clearly wasn't right for her. In the midst of this chaos, I couldn't stop thinking about the man she had chosen. I was curious, almost desperately so, about his role in all of this. I asked her if he was aware of the pregnancy and what exactly he had been told. Her answer was as calm and indifferent as she could make it. He knew about the pregnancy, and in his eyes, it didn't matter whether the baby was mine or his. All he cared about was his love for her. It struck me as odd. Why would a single man choose to get involved with a married, pregnant woman when he had so many other options? In my mind, his choice was baffling. Despite everything, I couldn't help but think that, in his own way, he had a certain charm about him. He had a stable job, his own home, and seemed to be in control of his life. Yet, his involvement in our tangled mess made him part of the problem. I often sit alone and wonder what has led us to this point. How did everything we built together collapse so completely? It feels as though our life has been hijacked by events that are too surreal to believe. I'm left questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and loyalty. I struggle with a deep inner conflict. In one hand, I feel betrayed and hurt by her actions, and on the other, I find myself still caring about her well-being. The emotional roller coaster has left me both angry and sorrowful. The situation is complicated further by the thought of a child who might be caught in the middle of this chaos. If the baby turns out to be mine, what does that mean for our future? Will I be forced to share my life, my home, and even my child with a woman who now lives so differently from the one I once loved? These questions haunt me day and night. I can't shake the feeling of dread that comes with the uncertainty of what the future holds. I often lie awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine a way out of this nightmare. Every option seems to lead to more heartache. In this new reality, the simple things in life have lost their meaning. The home that was once filled with laughter and shared dreams now echoes with silence and coldness. Every room reminds me of happier times that now seem like a distant memory. My heart aches for the past, even as I recognize that the future holds only more complications and pain. Looking back, I wonder if there was a moment when we could have saved what we once had. Perhaps if we had been more honest with each other, if we had addressed the small cracks before they turned into huge fissures, things might have turned out differently. But now, every attempt at reconciliation feels futile. The damage is done, and I find myself trapped in a life that is as messy as it is unpredictable. I continue to navigate through this complicated web of emotions and decisions, unsure of what the next day will bring. I remain cautious and reserved, even as a part of me yearns for a return to simpler times. My lawyer advises me on the legal steps I need to take, and I try to follow his guidance, even though my heart is not in it. The future seems to be shrouded in uncertainty, and every decision I make carries the weight of potential regret. In the end, I am left with a mix of resignation and lingering hope. Resignation that things have come to this, and hope that maybe, somehow, I can find a way to rebuild my life after all the chaos. It is a journey I never wanted to take, and yet it seems inevitable. As I watch her leave to join her new partner, I can't help but feel a deep sense of loss for the life we once shared, a life that now belongs only to the memories of a love that has long since faded away. I found out my wife had slept with the videographer from our wedding. It's absolutely unbelievable. I never thought that after 13 years of knowing each other and just over a year of marriage, I would be plunged into such deep betrayal. It all began on what was meant to be one of the happiest days of my life, our wedding day. I had trusted him completely to capture that special day on film, a day meant to celebrate our love and commitment. Little did I know that this very day would mark the start of a painful end. We had built a life together, one where I often set aside my own dreams and opportunities to be with her. I had arranged my entire world around our relationship, believing that our love was unbreakable. But one day, that belief was shattered in the most unexpected and heartbreaking way. A couple of days ago, while we were away on a weekend getaway with friends, I made a choice that I never thought I would have to make. I decided to look through her phone while she slept. I told myself that I needed to know the truth, even if it meant crossing a line that I knew was wrong. I wasn't prepared for what I found. The messages on her phone were filled with intimate details and explicit language meant for someone else, and reading her words felt like a punch straight to the heart. The betrayal wasn't only in the fact that she was unfaithful, it was also in the way she had shared parts of our private life with another person. Every word, every intimate confession that I thought was only ours, now belonged to someone else. In that moment, I felt completely defiled, as if my very being had been stained by her deceit. In my shock and despair, I couldn't keep the pain to myself. I called my mom and siblings, and as I poured out my heartbreak, the tears just wouldn't stop. I felt completely alone, overwhelmed by the raw, crushing pain of the betrayal. I had trusted her with my life, and now I felt that everything I had built was slipping away. When she finally woke up and came downstairs, I knew there was no avoiding the truth. I confronted her, telling her how deeply her actions had hurt me. I explained that her betrayal wasn't just about one moment of unfaithfulness, it had shattered the future we had planned together. As I spoke, she sat there in silence, absorbing every word. That silence, heavy and unyielding, told me more than any words could. It confirmed the truth that I already knew. Our relationship had been deeply damaged. That night, we made the painful decision to end our marriage. In the quiet hours of the early morning, around 3 a.m., we packed our belongings in silence and left the only home we had ever known. The drive home was long and filled with an unbearable quiet. I could hear her soft sobs in the back seat, each tear a reminder of everything that was now lost. I sat there, numb, feeling as if my heart was slowly falling apart. Once we arrived home, nothing seemed to ease the overwhelming pain. I broke down completely, realizing that I wasn't just losing a partner, I was losing the life I had so carefully built. My friends, my hobbies, my personal dreams, everything was slipping away with her betrayal. The sense of loss was all-consuming, and I struggled to find a way to move forward. In the midst of my despair, my mom arrived to pick me up. I hastily gathered a few belongings, just enough to get me through the next few weeks, and made sure to take our cats along. Even they seemed to sense the tension and sadness that had filled our home. My mom's house became a temporary refuge, a small safe haven in the storm of emotions that had overtaken me. Before I knew it, I had sent the final text message that sealed our fate. "We're divorcing." Even as I typed those words, I felt a mix of overwhelming sorrow and numb acceptance. I couldn't simply turn off the love I still felt for her, even after everything had happened. 13 years of memories, both beautiful and painful, were now intertwined with a betrayal that hurt more than I ever imagined possible. As I sit here now, trying to piece together the remnants of my life, I am haunted by conflicting emotions. I remember the moments of joy and the deep connection we once shared, and yet I cannot forget the sting of her actions. I am caught between the love I once had and the pain of her betrayal. It feels as if I am holding on to the past, even as I struggle to move forward into an uncertain future. In these moments of reflection, I realize that I cannot see her as all bad. She made a terrible choice, one that has left deep scars on both of us. Despite everything, I still care for her deeply, which makes the pain even harder to bear. It is a complicated mix of love and hurt, a battle between the desire to hold on to what once was and the need to protect myself from further pain. I am now on a journey to rebuild my life, one piece at a time. I yearn to regain everything that I lost: the confidence, the dreams, and the simple joys of living without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. It is a slow process, one filled with difficult days and moments of doubt, but I know that I must move forward if I am ever to find happiness again. This experience has taught me many hard lessons about trust, love, and the importance of being true to oneself. Although the pain is still fresh, I am determined to learn and grow from this betrayal. I know that the road ahead will be challenging, but I also believe that, with time, I will heal and build a future free of the hurt that once consumed me. In sharing this story, I hold on to the hope that one day I will look back at this dark chapter as a lesson that made me stronger and wiser. Until that day comes, I continue to navigate the delicate balance between remembering the love we once had and embracing the painful truth that has set me on a new path.